wish we had more time, and I feel like there's something else that we have to cover, and Mike's going to be very upset. He's going to be like, you didn't. Star Wars: The Clone Wars was mediocre fun for the whole family, and we got to see Watto's people.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars was Yoda kicking ass and the droids acting goofy.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars made me want to go to the gym so I could be as cool as Yoda.
Nice one. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast. It's the podcast in which we watch the very first episode of a series, and we talk about it. You know, we watch the first episode so you don't have to. Filling in for Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, co-host Scott Baker, writer, producer, director, mustachioed man.
Yeah. What's going
and
on?
Actress, cosplayer, producer, model, I guess, right? Vera Vanguard.
And writer-director now.
And writer, director, editor, gymnast, Vera Vanguard. So today we reviewed Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the first episode called Ambush on Hulu. Before we get started, the first thing we cover, by the way, if you guys want us to review something, in the comments below, just say WTF Seinfeld or WTF Friends. That means watch the first Friends or watch the first Cheers. Just let us know in the comments below what you want us to watch and review so that you don't have to watch it. First things first, guys. Before you watched any of this, before you thought about this in any way, what did you expect, Scott Baker? Did you have any expectations? What did you expect?
Low expectations, but I had seen a few episodes of the Clone Wars several seasons back, some of the Darth Maul episodes. And so I was kind of expecting actually to really like not know what was going on. And so I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to kind of pick up the story fairly easily.
I walked in not knowing anything. I've never watched a single episode of it. So I was like, well, how bad can it be? How good can it be? I've heard good things from people, but...
You guys both seen all the Star Wars movies or no?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen everything but the very last one where it's like...
The very, like episode 9?
Yeah, whatever that last thing was.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've seen all of the Star Wars movies, I believe. Yeah, I'm sure I've seen all of the Star Wars movies. So I expected that I would at least know mostly what's going on. That's about all I expected. I expected it to just be, you know, a cartoon. I thought the animation was going to be bad, but I thought the animation actually ended up being better than expected, which brings us to our next point. That's what you expected, Scott Baker.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you get?
What did I get? Well, what we got was, I'll read the description we got here from Disney+.
No. Don't. Give us the description. Yeah, give us the summary first, and then tell us what we got. Tell us the summary.
All right, I'll read it. I'm going to read it in the old-timey voiceover because that was something that I didn't expect that we got at the beginning, you know?
I wrote that too. I actually wrote that down in my notes too. All right.
Yeah, it was like a galaxy at war, you know? So Jedi Master Yoda and 3 clone troopers face off against Count Dooku's dreaded assassin Ventress and her droid army to prove Jedi are strong enough to protect a strategic planet and forge a treaty for the Republic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so then, what was your question? What did we end up getting?
Yeah, what did you get? What did you get out of this?
We got a whole lot of Yoda kicking ass, which was pretty cool to see that because, you know, especially as somebody who's like if you just watch the movies and all the live action stuff, you don't get to see a lot of that. Like in the prequels, we've got, you know, a little bit of Yoda fighting in the Clone Wars movie. Attack of the Clones. You get to see a little bit of that.
I think it was the second movie, whichever one that was.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones, and then there's a little, and then there's he fights he fights Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. But to see him just like kind of go all out and just like tearing up these droids, and it was just a couple battle scenes of just, you know, showing how badass Yoda was in his prime, I guess. or I guess this is still a little bit past his prime, but he's still rocking it. And
he had a lot more hair than I remember in the movies too, by the way.
Yeah.
What did you think, Vera? What did we get?
To build on Yoda, this is like me and my crazy brain right now. I'm like, why is he doing this like with the cane, and then he could do backflips, and he's like a master gymnast, and then he's like, and back to like walking like this with the cane. Like, shouldn't he be like normally just a normal?
That was kind of the play on what they did, I think, in the second movie too, where he like walks in all slow and then he puts it down and he strikes a pose and then he whoops ass and everybody in the theater's like, going bananas. And then when it's over, he goes back to his cane.
Yeah, like is he trying to lower our expectations and then like, surprise, I'm a badass, and then like.
Well, I think that's part of his ploy is to like make himself seem innocent and everything like that. But I think also like within the story, it's like him like conserving his energy. And then when he needs to use it, he like taps into the force, and he uses that and he's badass. And then he has to kind of go back to like, okay, now I gotta, I'm not tapping into my force energy, so that I'm an old man, So it's like he downs a Red Bull and goes out and he's back to being an old man again.
The Force Bull.
Right.
It's kind of like
a 5-hour energy drink.
Yeah, it's kind of like talk quietly and carry a big stick kind of thing.
The metachlorines, like bang, metachlorine energy.
Yeah.
There's like a Gatorade joke in there, like Gatorchlorines or something.
Yeah, Gatorchlorines.
Gatorchlorines.
Gives you the force.
I'll tell you what I got compared to what I expected was that there's really hardly any plot. Like really, you could narrow down the plot to about a phrase. You could say Yoda consistently beats up the bad guys. That's pretty much it, right? There really was. There was a little bit of a plot. There was a reason why he did that. But it really,
at least they have that, right?
The entire second half of the show was just him which is cool. We get it, but like then you have to remember, this is basically a children's cartoon, so they got to keep it super simple. But the animation was good.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like 2007 animation, right?
That was what?
It's like 2007 animation, that first episode, right?
Yeah, I believe so. That's why it was a little bit. That's why it was better than I expected. Yeah.
Right.
But he does the little thing where like he teaches the clone troopers a lesson about themselves.
Ooh, that's right.
He
did.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Scott P. Baker, because it's a G, isn't it? Because they're clones, and they all were raised in the exact same place in the exact same way, presumably. So how would they have such completely different personalities? That's a question that I actually put in my notes.
And different forces. They all have a different force.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe if they were raised in different planets, then they'd have like different personalities or different whatever. But they are exact biological clones that were raised in the exact same situation for the exact same purpose.
Why would they have an accent?
Well, because the actor in the previous movies was Maori, I believe, I believe it was Australian or Maori. So they're
keeping that.
Yeah, exactly. But what do you guys think? Is that even possible?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to like tap into larger metaphysical, question about like psychology and nurture versus nature and things like that. Like you think two people, even if they're raised in the same place, they're going to have minute differences in their experiences.
Right. But see, what I'm saying is these guys have nature and nurture that are exactly the same.
But that's even if they're raised in the same place, they're going to have minute differences in their experiences. Like, so like one guy has the path where he's going to become a general, and the other guy is going to be more of like the gunner type. So they're going on different career paths, like, okay, you're going to do this job and you're going to do this job. And so those experiences are different and they interact. Like maybe one guy hangs out with Jedi more than the other guy. And so he learns things that the other things, and those minute differences over time compound until you have somebody who has a slightly different personality than someone else.
And I totally agree with that. except that I don't think that those differences would make them such different characters, just like, say, Vera and I are, or you and Vera are, where we're like completely different people with different hopes and dreams and fears and whatever. These guys would basically be the same person with like slightly different, you know,
I like wondering
traits.
about that. I have a degree in molecular bio. This is what I do. And you know, like, think about twins. Like, they're clones of each other, but like one twin can, you know, have their own thoughts and the other twin could be completely different. And maybe, like, sure, they have the same genetics, but they might have different thoughts. Like, I have these friends, they're twins. One is dying of cancer right now. The other one's perfectly healthy, and they did the same exact thing. So, you know, there's always some sort of, like,
but we all know that clones are different than twins, too. They're even, like, more similar.
Right.
It's the same. An identical twin is the same thing as the clone. But I knew a set of identical twins in college, and yeah, they definitely had different personality. I mean, more or less had the same environment because they were raised in the same home. But then, you know, as they go through school, maybe they don't always have the same classes, and maybe like one has a friend over here and the one has a different friend, or, you know, like, you know, there's always going to be different personalities that
what if one twin grows up on, you know, electronic dance music and the other one heard some death metal and they're like,
right.
See, but in this case, they all heard the same music.
They even conjoined twins have different personalities.
Yeah.
And they're like in the same body. They're like always
Prove
the same
it.
place.
Call some up right now.
Yeah.
We all know those.
Mom? Yeah. Ryan wants to talk to you. And Jan
Dad.
and Mom?
And Dad. Okay. No, I mean, I totally agree that they would be different. Although I do think that clones are more similar than twins, because twins, isn't it? It's two things. When they're first just one cell, when it gets fertilized, and then even in that process of going to 2 cells and 4 cells and whatever, all the way to when they're born, at that point they are already different. You know, whereas a clone is like presumably 2 of the exact same thing. But I don't know much about cloning.
I think it's the same.
Okay.
But, you know.
It's
But
but personalities, they would differ.
Yeah.
Just based on whatever. Like, one tripped over a rock and grew a spine because it's like, oh, I can deal with this pain, and another one trips over and it's like, no, I can't live with this pain.
Right.
yeah.
Right. I don't know.
That's why one clone is a general and one clone is not.
Yeah, I do agree that it's entirely possible. I don't really know the lore of it, that they're like, that they all took different classes. You know, like some of them were like, as soon as they're born, they're like, okay, you're going in the general classes and you're going in the trooper classes and you're doing like that, in which case they would kind of start to deviate.
And I don't know the canon either, but I would presume that there might be some sort of genetic modification going on, that even though they are all clones, they're going to say, okay, well, this set we're going to make a little bit smarter to be the generals. This set will make a little bit stronger to be the infantry. This set will give better eyesight to be the snipers, or
exactly. And if that's the case, like then that explains it.
How brave new world of them.
Great. So that answers that question, presumably.
Quick question on your question. All the droids have like different personalities too, and if they all have the same programming, but they're all still different.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think Scott picked up on the same thing I did, or was it you that mentioned at the beginning the droids? We got to talk about.
Yeah, they're stupid. Here. Why?
Why did they make them dumb 4-year-olds or 6-year-olds?
Yeah.
I put that in my notes. I'm like, they act like children.
Hate that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense from like a filmmaker perspective that you're going to make a show and to make these characters enjoyable and kind of funny and, you know, relatable to kids. We're going to kind of make them goofy. But if you look at it from and then kill them. But if you look at it from a standpoint of like the people who created the droids, it doesn't make any sense. Even if you don't make them very smart, you don't like give them like a goofy personality. That seems
and they're all
sort
goofy.
Yeah, that seems.
Who programmed these things?
Yeah, you would
Yeah.
actually, like, even if you're right, even if they weren't smart, you wouldn't add a program that makes them say dumb things, like adds dumb things like, well, I don't know, yup, I don't They're like the Three Stooges out there. They're like cracking
They are.
jokes.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
just
know.
get destroyed anyway.
Totally
Why make them? What
totally
a waste
unbelievable.
of resources, I say.
Oh, Scott, I thought you were going to say totally unprofessional. Like, doggone it.
Professional.
These guys would never
That
make it in
too.
the professional world.
Right.
No.
Did you guys think that they were funny at all? Were there any moments that the
No.
droids? No.
I rolled my eyes every time any one of them said anything. Like, oh, okay. Oh, ha
Yeah.
ha.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching, like, I went and saw Phantom Menace when it came out in the theaters because, you know, it was like, oh my God, a new Star Wars movie. And so me and all my friends, you know, lined up the day before, and it was, you know, pandemonium because we were just like so excited, you know, the first Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi, and, you know, largely kind of being a bit disappointed in the movie as we watched it, but slightly entertained by these battle droids, and their humor was novel at the time, and it was kind of funny, and it was enjoyable.
And we
There's
were a
no
lot
Jar
younger
Jar.
back then.
Well, there's that, but I felt this is kind of like it's still kind of playing that note. It's like I haven't watched this whole Clone Wars series to know if that's a recurring thing, but I feel like, man, that's a joke that gets old. You know, it didn't feel like it was even new material from the original Phantom Menace kind of stuff. It was the same sort of, like you're saying, yuck, and they're falling over and shooting each other.
And I think that, like, in the Phantom Menace, like, they were dumb and there was a little bit of comedy, but these guys were like uber stupid. These guys were like bumbling freaking idiots. They were just like going out of their way to being stupid.
Right. It's like they, you know, had like Dennis Leary or some like terrible comedian do the programming for their personalities. You know, somebody
George
wasn't even
Carlin.
a funny comedian. Well, no, George Carlin would actually probably be funny. But
no, I'm saying George Carlin would think it was funny to create these droids to mess with all these guys. I'm gonna make them total idiots. I'm gonna screw the man.
There's only one good joke in that whole thing for me was when Yoda was inside the tank and he pulls the droid down. The droid's like, "But I just got a promotion because his superior died or something." I'm like, one good one.
Scott, how many times did the droids make you LOL?
0 LOLs. A couple. Like
any LMFAOs?
None of those. Not a single one.
Okay. Yeah. I did.
My ass was not on the floor.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, they did make it. You know, I did realize that they make it like droids so that they could kill them, and it's not actually showing real violence, because it's not really violence to children if you're killing things that are not alive and that are stupid. You know, because they didn't kill anything that was alive. Anything that was alive did not even get really harmed, hardly. You know.
Well, here's my thing: if they're making these droids stupid and childlike, they're actually kind of endearing at that point, and they're the ones getting wiped off.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Interesting writing choices.
But even the larger battle droids, the ones that were like those big beefy guys, even those guys kind of had.
They're like, don't shoot,
like,
don't shoot.
Yeah, don't shoot me. It's like,
I'm a malfunction.
Yeah. I feel like those guys in the Phantom Menace were kind of scary, and so and the little guys that kind of spin out and kind of like crabs. That this episode, like you could have added a little more seriousness and made like, oh my God, is Yoda gonna die? Like those guys are really closing in and Yoda's in danger. And
he had no oh no moment. Like there was no overpowering Yoda moment.
Yeah. There was, you know, where it looked like, oh, there's a lot of guys and they're coming out, but it wasn't. You didn't ever really fear that. Oh, maybe it's more than a Yoda could handle, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They're just establishing that he's kind of perfect in every way, and he's the best fighter, and most wise Jedi.
I mean, obviously, like it'd be interesting what like how the show was like created as far as like the target audience and stuff like that, because obviously it's meant for kids, but a lot of people, you know, who are adults enjoy the show because Star Wars has this fan base that's older, and so it's that interesting you know, take to kind of like create a show like this where you're appealing to like two separate audiences, and just like to how they approach it. I feel sometimes it works and sometimes it's like that's like it's so kind of childish and goofy.
Agreed.
But maybe kids like that. I don't know. We should have a kid as a guest to bring him in. And
Darth. We'll call Darth.
See what an 8-year-old thinks. You know.
Yeah. I don't know. Let me ask you this. This was another thing I wanted to discuss was, what did you guys think about well, I kind of want to finish on the droids first. What would you guys change about the droids? Just in general, like, would you make them less fun? Would you just take away the comedy element from the droids? Would you really focus on the comedy element, but actually make them funnier? Would you leave it alone? I mean, what would you do with the droids to improve them? Because I didn't think it really worked.
I think you could make them a little bit more badassy because they're just cannon fodder, and their programming would be a little bit smarter than what they're at. Like, keep them funny, but make them a little more badassy. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, they wouldn't be goofy. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. They would know they're robots.
Yeah, they're programmed.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I liked. Yeah, I think the bits of humor, like how they did it in Phantom Menace, was well done. In that there was a little bit of humor and there was a couple moments where they were kind of goofy, but it wasn't like everything they said and every single interaction they had were Three Stooges. It was like on this one, every time they opened their mouth, it was something goofy. And also the larger ones, you know, like I said, I think if they had made the larger droids a little more menacing and serious, then that would have been more of a contrast, and it would have maybe added a bit more suspense and drama to the scenes of like, oh, maybe Yoda is met his match, or at least it's a little bit of a challenge for him. And maybe that's what they were trying to show, was that like, oh, you could have all these droids and it's still not even a challenge for Yoda, but it was like, oh, it's not a challenge because you have a bunch of goofy, you know, dimwit robots, you know, coming out at you. And it kind of yeah, I would just say because it kind of undermines Ventress, her thing, like, well, we'll just see when I send out my best troops against Yoda. I was like, really? You got a bunch of, you know, mentally handicapped robots that you're going to send out against a Jedi? Like, you think that's going to work? Like, you know.
Let's send the army of children to
Also,
get
right.
Did you guys notice that? Let's talk about Watto's people. I forgot what they're called. They're called like toys or something. Toydarians, maybe.
Katunko.
Yeah, well, a Toydarian. Yeah. So they seemed very different from Watto. If you guys have seen Watto in the first and second movies, he was basically, let's just call him what he was. He was a Star Wars Ferengi, right? I mean, that's
right.
Yeah. For those of you that watch Star Trek, he's like, oh, Jedi mind tricks don't work on me, only money, right? He's a total.
I give you a good deal, Annie. I give you a real good deal.
Okay, your turn, Vera.
What was the question?
Oh, we're doing bad impressions.
Oh.
Hey, mine was pretty good.
Oh, really?
It was pretty good.
Okay.
I just do Jew jokes all day long, so there.
Scott, do you want to hit one? So these guys, what did you think of these guys? Because they weren't very much like Watto, you know. So what I expected was that for all of them to act like Watto, for them to be like, look, all I care about is money. Hey, I care about money over here. But they weren't like that. The dude was kind of a little wise, and he was sweet almost, and you know, appreciated Yoda. I don't know. What did you guys think of those guys?
I actually agree with that. Like, I was like, wait a minute, this guy is noble and he's a king and he's not like all Ferengi'd out. I'm like, whoa, oh, so okay, it's not a whole race of that one guy. That guy is a bad apple in that whole race of noble flying insect.
Right, but he did say Jedi mind tricks don't work on me. He did say only money, which means that his whole race should be only about money. But you're right. Yeah, this guy was noble.
Well, maybe just that guy, because he's the king, so maybe they chose wisely as opposed to getting that, princess, whatever her name is, Amidala. Like, yes, we elected a child to be our queen. We elected a child to be your... I don't understand this at all. Someone explain that to me. Why a planet would elect a child to be their queen?
You want to handle that one, Scott?
Please, someone explain.
Ask North Korea.
2 points.
That's not it's an answer. Like, okay.
What did you think about the Toydarians, Scott?
I feel like, there really wasn't much in this episode to even really get into like who they are and what was going on. They were sort of not even window dressing, I think, in this, like he was just kind of there like, oh, I'll see if the Jedi come, and all the Jedi coming, and oh, hey, what's up, Yoda? He didn't really have he didn't really get a sense of like who he was or why he was even part of the story. It was, you could have put anybody in that slot, but it is interesting to see, whatever the, that like his race, like how he's different than what we knew Watto in the prequels and stuff like that. Maybe it just goes to show that they're a little more diverse of people than we, assume from just one person. Teaches all a lesson about generalizing peoples based on one representative.
That lesson.
I'm sticking by my bigotry. They're all space Jews. Yeah,
but he was the one, Watto was the one that, it's not that we assumed, it's that we were led to believe. They basically told us in Star Wars that this is what the race is like. But something I did notice was that was a little weird, and I nitpick a lot when it comes to nerdy stuff because I'm a big dork. But like, we didn't see any of their buildings. We didn't see any of their vehicles. Presumably they don't need vehicles because they can fly. And all he had was like 2 guards with him. So we're supposed to believe that the king of this planet wants to have a meeting to decide the fate of his planet. And he and 2 guys just roam out into the middle of the desert to have this meeting and go, okay, well, here we are to, we always meet in the middle of the desert. What's the big deal?
That's a great point, because like, why do they need this particular planet for anything? Like, why that?
They met on the moon of the planet, and it said something about it being neutral ground. So it was kind of like, it's when you go like you go buy something off of Craigslist and you meet at Starbucks.
Right.
That's what this was. Is they were.
But that makes sense. That's something I missed. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it was. Is they were meeting on neutral ground. So it wasn't like, because they were making a deal.
So if they went on the moon, then presumably they'd have a ship next to them.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd have something. I don't know. I just kind of was like, what is this? The Old West? What's going on?
Yeah. And I don't remember seeing like a ship or anything in the background.
No, there wasn't. Good point. Maybe they flew there. Did they fly through space?
Maybe. They have long noses. Maybe they can hold a lot of air in there. Fly.
Yeah, right.
So what did you guys think about the humor in general? The droids maybe not, but there was humor in there. Yoda, maybe made a couple cute quips. The king, whatever his name was, King Katunko, was like, but hang on a second. I don't know. What do you guys think of the humor in general? Was there anything that really made you laugh, or did you feel like it was a swing and a miss, or do you feel like they just didn't really try to be funny?
I felt like there really wasn't much other attempt to be funny in the show except for the droids. I think they kind of they put all their eggs in the basket of the droids to carry the humor of the show,
I don't know if the show is supposed to be funny. Like maybe they just wanted it to be a drama sci-fi thing with peppering a little bit of humor here and there. I mean, it ain't no Joss Whedon, right? Just to be honest.
So here's the ship that the King Katunko came in on.
Ooh.
Right there.
You did
There's
find
the
it,
ship.
huh? Hang on, let me pin this.
Yeah.
I want to take a look at that guy. Bottom right, everybody.
You found a ship?
Yeah, this is the ship that King Katunko and his guards came in on.
Okay.
All right.
And that was in the background?
This is like 42 seconds into the show. We see them landing and coming in. So you see there's the ship back there, and then that's them flying in.
Question.
I just want to say that I am satisfied by that answer then, Scott. I think I'm serious. I think I was like, okay, you're right. That was neutral ground. That was something I missed, and there was a ship in the background. All right, Star Wars, I apologize. You did it. Okay, sorry. What were you saying, Vera?
I was going to ask something. Give me a second to remember.
That's okay. It's
regroup.
Oh, the exposition. Like, why do they have to keep telling us stuff? Why can't they just show us, like, or some guard going, neutral ground, sir, we're landing. We're about to meet your rendezvous is late. Like, why do they have to keep giving us voiceovers of everything?
That's because it's a children's thing. That one I could definitely say is because it's aimed at children. And you have to, when you're watching children's cartoons, and when we watched them when we were kids, they'd be like, that's John Smith. He's the bad guy. And we go, oh, he's the bad guy. Okay, kill him. You know,
well,
they
that's
really
fine. It's just, voiceover the whole time. Like, okay.
Yeah. And then when you see the bad guy comes on and announces to everybody else that he's the bad guy.
I'm the bad guy.
Yeah. like
I am here to kill you all.
Yeah. Like a Cobra Commander and all those kind of guys, right? They come on and they spend 2 minutes explaining their big plan to kill everybody or whatever the overcomplicated death ray or whatever it is that.
Scott, I have a feeling that you've got a pretty good Cobra Commander impression. Am I right?
No, I'm not Cobra Commander that I can remember.
What about
it's been a while since I watched it. Trying to think of
what about Starscream on Transformers? Same guy doing the same voice. I'm sure of it.
Oh, it's the same guy.
I don't know.
Probably
Yeah. With something that's very high pitched kind of.
Only we had something to look it up with.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Change lives. Change the world.
Well, what were you saying a second ago, Vera?
Oh, that's a good one.
I was going to ask about Cobra Commander. He spends all this time and money building castles and fortresses and mountains and wherever, and then G.I. Joe's like, blow it up. Now poor Cobra Commander has to go and make another fortress castle somewhere in some deep whatever, and G.I. Joe just comes and blows it up. And I'm like, where does he get all these resources?
Well, it's because G.I. Joe's a real American hero.
Yeah.
Right. Of course.
Now we know.
And
that knowledge
knows half the battle. Yeah.
There it is.
The other half is large weaponry and
preparation,
advanced technology, and
winning stuff.
Geopolitical strategy.
Right.
Okay, so we didn't really. I guess that was everything there was about the comedy. There really weren't any lines out there that stuck out to you guys that made you laugh, besides the one Vera kind of mentioned where he said, I just got a promotion. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, let's fast forward then to the portion of the podcast that I like to call the next part.
Ooh.
So what was your favorite part? Well, was there something that you enjoyed? And don't say Yoda beating people up, because that was like 2/3 of the episode. Was there something that was good? Was it a cool character or a cool scene or a good animation?
I like what Scott said when Yoda teaches the lesson to the 3 clones. That I was like, look, they actually are taking the time in this show to like slow down and give kids a little lesson here. Like, oh, have a heart. Don't just be, don't slow down. Let like, oh, all right, Yoda.
I agree. It was
fighters.
it was well placed too, because it's like action, 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 action. They needed kind of like to take that breath, take that beat, and then go back into the final kind of showdown.
Yeah, I would say my favorite part was also the biggest letdown for me, towards the end there when he confronts Ventress. And I thought, oh, cool, let's see him, like, let's see her try to battle Yoda and do something. And like, you know, she's goes to kill the king, and Yoda steps in at the last minute and stops her. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, let's see some action of this. And then
Scott wants to see some action between Yoda and Ventress.
Yeah. And then he just kind of takes her sabers away, and then she runs. And
then he gives them back.
He gives them back. He gives them back. Yeah.
Why did he take them?
Well,
and give them back.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the Jedi way, right? Like he's not going to kill her. And so maybe there's that sort of like, I know you, like, he's so much more powerful than her. It's like, I can give these back and I know you can't hurt me with them.
Right. But then, so the Jedi way is to taunt people, because he could have just disarmed her, but instead he took them and said, look, I can take these from you. See how much more powerful I am? Here you go. Try it again so I can show off again.
Right. Or just kind of that's yeah, him like teaching her a lesson sort of thing, like maybe reconsider your path in life.
I'm just like wondering, you know? If he just captured her, would that be the end of the show, since we haven't seen the rest of it? Like, would he save millions and billions of lives and planets if he just caught her right there and stopped her?
Well, see, I don't think so, because if I'm guessing correctly, I think that this show covers a bunch of different storylines. Like, it covers Anakin and them, and it just, you know, covers that lady Ventress and Yoda, you know. So it's like, if I'm sure she'll come back a bunch of times, and he may have saved millions of people if he just captured her rather than letting her. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, you know, how much it gets into as far as like Yoda's ability to like foresee the future and stuff like that. But within the canon, like she does later, spoiler alert, later in the storyline, I don't know if it's covered in this series or not, but within canon, she does end up turning on Dooku because of internal conflict there. So she doesn't stay like a Sith for the rest of her life.
How do you know this, Scott?
But the internet told me.
Oh.
Were you just researching that last night to learn more about the character?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. There's a lot of information out there on this internet.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
You can go to the Wikipedia. Is actually what it's called, the Wikipedia, which is like the Star Wars wiki.
I've seen it, yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
so that was the most disappointing thing for you.
The best / disappointing, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what I guess for me, I just was happy to see more of Watto's people, because I do love world building. I do love seeing people's visions of the world, like, you know, how much detail they've gone into. And obviously Star Wars has gone into a lot of detail. And if I remember correctly, we've only seen one of Watto's race. And I do enjoy seeing more of a specific character's race and learning more about them, and, you know, all that, kind of going into those details. So I like that, even though, again, kind of like what Scott said, that was also kind of the most disappointing thing, because we didn't really learn much about them. We had the opportunity to, but he only brought 2 guards with him. Why didn't he bring a fleet or an army? He's the darn king of a planet. But anyway, I was just happy to see and it was cool to see Count Dooku. Clearly voiced by somebody else, I'm sure. I'm sure they couldn't afford Christopher Lee for voiceover.
I don't think they could afford to bring him back from the dead to do the.
Well, I don't think he was dead in 2008. You know.
This isn't 2008 though.
Yeah, it is. 2007.
Yeah, right? New. No. This particular episode we just watched is like brand new.
No,
it's from 2007, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking. It was 2007 or 8. Yeah, definitely. This was the first season.
No, this is the last season, the final season. This is new stuff.
No, this is mira. October 3rd, 2008.
Is the
episode we just watched, Ambush.
I thought we were watching the final. I thought we were watching the final. So I thought we were in season 7. Sorry, I just clicked on the.
Right, that's how Hulu. It's confusing how Hulu promotes it. They're saying the Clone Wars, the final season, but they're promoting it that way. But when you click on it, it actually has seasons 1 through 7, and we just watched the first episode, which was 2008.
I see. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry. I thought we were.
No, it's confusing.
I know that they had just made that new. I thought we were watching the new season of it. So yeah,
just the first episode. We'll never watch that season. It'll never.
Right.
Except for when we create a new podcast called "Watch Any Episode."
Yeah.
How about we watch the very last episode of any show
and try to deduce what happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How did they get there?
Reverse engineer it.
Yeah. See who's right.
Vera, did you have a least favorite moment or part or character?
I'm like on that Ventress was her name. I'm like, yay, she's so boring. Another hateful, spiteful villain that's just like I would have liked to see like at least a little sentence or a hint of like what's her other motive? Does she have another motive other than she's just following Dooku blindly? Like is she like, I have other things on my mind except just killing Yoda? Like, okay, or maybe that's supposed to be dumbed down like that for kids. I don't know, but like, yay, another villain that's like you could tell Dooku has like shit going on in his mind, but her, she's just like, is she following orders or is she?
Right. Or she just kind of like added a line and said like, you know, Yoda, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm not just saying this as your ex-wife.
Exactly. If that was his ex-wife, boo! Like, ex-wife you are.
Scott, what do you think of that?
I don't know what to say about that. Actually,
we're gonna write our own canon.
Christopher Lee is credited as the Count Dooku voice.
Really? So he did do it, huh? That's cool.
Yeah.
I just thought they found somebody that sounded exactly like him.
They did. It was him.
Let's see.
The guy.
They found his clone.
Yeah, and Tom Kane was the narrator that made it sound super old-timey.
Yes.
Made it sound like it was the 30s, see?
Yes, here we are. A galaxy at war. Yeah, that was good. I didn't expect that. I thought that was kind of funny in a way. It seemed it seemed out of place, you know,
Yeah,
but
I thought so too.
Seemed a bit out of place, but I guess as the show goes, if that keeps happening, then sort of, you know, you kind of get used to it and it becomes part of like what the show is, you know. I guess maybe a callback to the old radio serial shows that they used to have, you know, like The Shadow and all those old timey radio shows before there was TV, you know.
War of the Worlds, wasn't that the one that made Panic? Created Panic.
Yeah, and I guess early television too had those serials like that. And I guess if you look back to the sort of tradition as far as like where Lucas got the idea for Star Wars and stuff like that, it was like the old serialized shows, the westerns and the adventure superhero kind of shows and stuff like that. So this was kind of a historical connection to all that, but it seemed like not being part of Star Wars as we know it now, as far as the live action shows, it did kind of seem out of place. But
okay. Oh, one other little thing I wanted to nitpick about. God, I nitpick a lot when it comes to nerdy children's cartoons.
Sure
Maybe they
do.
aren't made for people like me. Children's cartoons. The tanks. they said tanks can't drive or shoot through trees. And I felt like maybe they can. I felt like maybe tanks generally can. I feel like that's kind of the point of having tanks, is so that they can just barrel through anything, through trees, through buildings, through other tanks, especially tanks with superior technology to the ones we know. Like they can shoot lasers.
Freaking laser beams.
Yeah, it's just like, he's like, oh, the tanks can't go through trees. And I'm like, can't they though? I mean, maybe they could like shoot a tree.
But at the end, they're like rolling through the trees anyway, so.
I know.
Well, some of those weren't trees. They were like, it looked like coral, because it kind of looked like an old ancient seabed. So coral is more like calcium kind of deposits. So it's more like rocks.
Well, maybe that particular droid that said stop was more conservationist, and he was like, hey, we gotta leave this alone, and then he gets killed, so the guy next up doesn't care, so he's like, let's probably do this.
Maybe when they said they can't, they meant that we shouldn't, because it's ethically
they came from different
wrong.
they came from different droid parties.
That's what I'm saying, just like the clothes. Oh, we brought it right back. Oh, it's full circle.
Yeah, but and to Scott's point, that was kind of the conclusion I came to as well. It kind of always makes you like challenge what we know, and that's what makes, you know, creative sci-fi people so interesting, is they say, well, why can't trees be made out of coral, or, you know, some weird hydrogen compound, or dry ice, for all we know? What do we know? You know what I mean? And so they just call them trees because that's the closest thing, but maybe they grow over the course of 10,000 years as like these little calcium deposits or stalagmites or something. I don't know.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Vera Vanguard, let's talk a little bit about you, shall we?
Shall we? Let's.
So Vera, first things first, you do way too many things for me to list right now. You're an actor, you're a producer, you're a writer, you're a director, you're a second place championship fisherman, I believe.
No, I'm a world champion bodybuilder as well. Nice. In the bikini division. Yeah. Which is what these wings are. Everybody's like, what are the wings? And during quarantine, I picked up the guitar, and if you go on my Facebook or Instagram, you'll see me shredding guitar, because there's something needed to keep me sane, and I wasn't going to Netflix without the chill, so I was just going to play guitar. So that was what I did during quarantine.
Let's start from the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Moscow. I speak Russian fluently. I grew up in New York City, and then I came out to Hollywood to be in the biz, and somehow found a place here for it. So that's all I do. I do production 100% of the time.
So you actually moved to Hollywood specifically to do acting? Was that your number one goal, or was it filmmaking?
It was acting, but then I realized that filmmaking is a lot more fun, and there's more power and prestige in being a filmmaker than just being an actor, because there's a million actors, but you know, then you start creating stuff and you're like, oh, this is amazing. So I spent the last 15 years just learning production and every part of it, so that's fun. Writing is my favorite though. Comedy. We write the comedy.
Specifically comedy, or like sci-fi comedy, or
any kind of comedy. Last year my feature film Breaking Barbie came out, and that's a sci-fi comedy, and I wrote that. So yeah, there you go. You can find it for free on YouTube. It's called Breaking Barbie.
Breaking Barbie. Okay.
Breaking Barbie. Barbie with an I. You can find it on YouTube for free. It's been pirated all over the place, and I'm like, yeah, what a compliment.
I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's a great thing. So
what's it about?
It's about the selfie queen. I basically take every trope that we hate about millennials and selfie queens and whatever, squats and fitness girls, and put it into one hated creature person. And then I set her free after a bad Tinder date in the woods. She doesn't have cell phone service, so she's like, oh my God. So while she's looking for cell phone service, the social commentary is that she misses an alien invasion happening in the background while she's like, oh my God. And that's kind of my commentary on, would any of these girls see an alien invasion if like it happened, or they would be like, too busy posting a selfie?
Well, to answer that question, I feel like yes, they would probably see it, but no, they would probably not care. And
Right.
people would say, why didn't you take a picture? And they'd be like, well, the camera was aimed at me, of course.
Exactly. Perfect. Right on. You get it.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Russia.
No, I grew up here. I was born in Russia.
When did you move here?
I was 4.
Oh,
so I do not talk
okay.
like Muslim squirrel.
Oh, okay. Did you when you came here with your family, right? Or did you immediately watch like American TV, or were you like watching Russian TV?
When we finally got a TV, I was watching American TV, and that's kind of where I learned English. I think I learned English.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, because I spent a year in the old Soviet Union. I lived in Turkmenistan. Yeah.
Wow.
And so when I was there, obviously everybody's watching Russian television, and they seem to love like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone,
yes.
all those
Seagal?
movies.
The
Seagal,
common
especially.
misconception is that Russians hate Americans. No, Russians love everything Westerns. They just love it. It's just like the government, whatever. But the people love all the Western stuff. They all want to be like Americans.
Yeah. So I was gonna, because I'd assumed that you had grown up there, but I was gonna ask you about your opinion of those kind of action movies, or what kind of shows influenced you.
Oh, I love all that stuff. I love all that stuff anyway. I actually started, my very first thing in the industry was as a stunt girl. I started as a stunt person that went into acting and then just progressed on through. Did you learn any Russian while you were there?
Oh, yeah.
Да, я говорю по-русски чуть-чуть.
Чуть-чуть. Очень хорошо.
Спасибо, gracias. Yeah, so I was there for about a year, and I was able to speak pretty well as far as like I could communicate my base. I was like a toddler kind of, so I could understand people, and I could say what I more or less say what I wanted, but my vocabulary was really small, so I kind of had to compromise and use real basic
Why did you
words.
go?
And I was in the Peace Corps after I got out of college. Yeah, so yeah. So I was teaching English and working with English teachers out there and stuff like that. So
very cool.
Also, very quickly, do you guys know, speaking of Russians and Westerns, what major iconic Western element, as in an element of Westerns, the TV genre or the movie genre, came from Russia?
Ooh, stumped. I usually don't get stumped.
Tumbleweeds is the answer.
Really?
Tumbleweeds. Yeah, they all came from Russia. They're not indigenous to this country or continent. They just came in the horse poops that were brought over from Russian horses into North America. Tumbleweeds. But anyway, kind of like how tomatoes were not indigenous to Italy, but when we think of Italy, we think of tomatoes. Anyway,
either noodles. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So anyway, Vera.
Yes.
We're veering away from the topic a bit, which is you. What are you working on right now, by the way?
Working on music, actually. Like since I picked up the guitar, I decided to really give music another try. I grew up a pianist, so I play classical piano, and I'm heavy metal guitar, and now I'm just like, hey, let's make some synthwave. Some dance metal.
Simply nice.
Always ready.
Do you have any projects that are in the works right now that you're either writing a new script, or something's in post-production, or there's an idea that you've been noodling around with that you kind of want to put out there?
Right now I got a kung fu fight video that's in post-production with the vegan black metal chef. I am directing several music videos. There's one coming out soon for a vampire theatrical band called Vera. And I'm really going into music video directing. I love it. It's like one of those things where I'm just like, I love directing music videos. So that's something I'm focusing on more, and just getting into music.
That's awesome. That vegan chef guy, you're telling us about him a little bit before we start recording. Tell us about him real quick for the audience.
If you're into vegan food, the Vegan Black Metal Chef is a YouTuber that has a musical cooking program where he cooks vegan food while dressed in black metal, and he sings the recipes in black metal. It's awesome. Go check it out.
Scott and I were talking about our favorite line from that guy. Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
What's your YouTube channel, by the way, where we can see your movies and projects?
You could just Google Vera Vanguard and everything will pop up. Mainly, most of my stuff is on Instagram at Vera Vanguard, VANGUARD.
We'll include all that in the description box
please.
Below. Well, that's really cool. It seems like it's worked out well for you. And do you feel like if and when you make it to this point where you're like, wow, I've accomplished the things I want to accomplish, I'm super rich and famous, are you going to stay in Hollywood? Are you going to move to outer LA, or are you going to move to?
Oh, no. I live in Hollywood. I'm staying here. By the way, quick question, quick answer to a lot of what people ask me. Yes, these are the most famous hands in the world. I'm one of the top child-size hand models out there. So anytime you've seen any commercial with even Star Wars, I've done a lot of Star Wars commercials, Hot Wheels, Barbie, you name it. These are the hands that are puppeteering the toys.
Wow. Can you give us a demonstration?
A demonstration?
Up to the camera, just show us a little pickup or something. We'll be like, whoa, I totally remember that.
Maybe not one of those. Let me grab a unicorn.
All right. Oh, okay.
Wow.
You didn't know you were talking to Hollywood royalty, did you, Scott?
No, I didn't. Yeah. I mean, fun factoid. My hands appear in a close-up of Fifth Passenger, so that's pretty awesome.
Fifth Passenger is a movie that Scott Baker here wrote, directed, and produced. Check it out.
Yeah.
It's also the poster in the background. Really awesome. 10 Star Trek actors in it. So let's pull this up. All right. It's a glowing unicorn.
Yeah, it's glowing.
I bring toys to life. That's what I do for a living. Aww. So cute. But yeah, it would be any kind of toy, Hot Wheels. I've done all the Transformer toys, you name it. It's easier to say which toys I haven't worked on than what I have worked on.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I do full time.
Do they ever, just real quick, do they ever say, okay, you got to keep your nails clipped because it's supposed to be a
yeah. It's no nails. I just did, the last 2 days I was on Disney Pixar Cars and Mario Kart. Cool. So that's what I did the last 2 days. And the weirdest job in the world, you never expect, what you think it's hand modeling. It's this. No, it's I'm under a set with my arms over my head watching a monitor, puppeteering. It's crazy.
Sounds cool.
Is there a community of you guys? We get together and it's the hand model.
Or is it super cutthroat?
It's super cutthroat. There's about 8 of us.
Cut fingers.
There's only 8 of us that actually work and do this job because it's a very specific set of skills. Just like Liam Neeson, I have a special set of skills.
Do they ever try to hand you something that's really hot to burn your hand and be like, aha, I got you.
Actually, the Pixar cars yesterday, we were throwing them through hot water because they changed colors, and we were shooting that on a Phantom. So high-tech stuff.
Okay.
I've been drowning in tanks. Does that count?
No. So now we've come to the portion of the show that is affectionately called by Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, who's not with us. By the way, big special shout out to Michael Kenyon Rosenberg. He was in an accident, a car accident, so he's unable. He's fine. He's gonna be fine, but he wasn't up for recording, and that's why Mr. Scott Baker graciously jumped in for him. So shout out to Michael Kenyon Rosenberg. Feel better soon. He affectionately calls this final portion of the show, and he's not here to defend himself and say that he doesn't really call it this, but let's just say that he does. The terrible twos, which are the final 2 questions of the show. The terrible twos. They're really, you're going to hate them. They're tough. First one. This is it. This is where we really grill you. Scott Baker. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give the first episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Ambush?
5.5.
Okay. Solid answer. You said it with a lot of conviction too. So it wasn't. So I can't question that because I can tell that you're sure of it. Vera, what about you?
I agree with Scott. 5.5. That was the first number that came to mind. Like, okay.
Wow.
If I was a child, maybe I'd give it a higher number, like, hey, Yoda! But nah.
You know, I was going to give it a... it's tough. See, I'm less confident than you guys are. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I was going to give it a 6, but I gave it a 6.5 at the last second because for me, I really like the world building, and this gave me that. I don't think the writing was particularly good. I thought that the world building was a little bit good. I thought that the animation was good. So the story itself was like a 3, but the other elements were higher up. So I give it a 6.5 all around. Okay.
That's fair.
Thank you. Oh. So
I'm just going to say that I'm tempted to give a slightly higher score just because it was created in 2008. Like I said, I was under the misimpression that we were actually watching the last season, and so but then again, another point against it was this being the very first episode. You'd think they'd really want to do something special, right. And this was just sort of like
or some kind of introduction.
Yeah, the cliffhanger didn't leave me hanging like, oh, I need to see the next one.
Oh yeah, well, oh my god, I gotta watch more of the show. Yeah,
right.
So.
This is like called a third episode pilot, where it's not really like a pilot that introduces you to stuff. It just drops you into like a regular episode. Right. And so you see, okay, this is what the show's going to be like. It's just going to be like this thing that we dropped in.
It's no Game of Thrones where you're like, oh my god, I need to see the next thing now.
Yeah, it's definitely not that. But I will say the second question of the terrible twos, this is where it really gets tough. So for the purposes of this podcast, we watched the first episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Now that the podcast is over, theoretically speaking, would you watch the second? Would you watch the second episode of your own volition? Theoretically.
Sure. But that's because I feel like I need to finish things. Not because I'm like, oh, I'm dying to see the rest of it.
Okay, so that's an affirmative, it sounds like. Just barely.
OCD makes me want to watch the next one.
You're going to have to watch like 200 episodes now. Oh, wow.
God.
What about you, Scott? Of your own volition, theoretically, in a vacuum, would you watch the second?
No. I mean, I'd say in a vacuum makes it hard because like in the context of this world we're in where there's so much content, I feel like there's so many other things I would rather watch.
Don't factor in like time or anything. Just would you theoretically want to?
I mean, if time wasn't a factor, sure, I'd watch anything. If time wasn't a factor, but I mean, but I think that's an important factor when you're looking at anything that you watch. It's like, well, do I want to spend a half an hour watching this when I could watch something else? Or looking at, okay, there's 7 seasons. Do I want to because if I watch the second episode, that means I'm committing to watch all 7 seasons of this thing. Right. And this episode wasn't complex enough to be like, okay, this is something that I want to get invested in these characters and to see this storyline through. Like I could see kind of jumping around. Like I said, like I watched some of the Darth Maul episodes and those are all right, because I just really wanted to know what they had done with that character. But to like watch the next episode and then follow through and watch all 7 seasons of this, like, man, there's a lot of other stuff I got to get through before I would.
I don't know if nonlinear writing was a thing in 2008. It is definitely a thing now. Like you don't want to write anything in linear form. Like you need to jump around now. Like that's the trend in shows.
So
you gotta jump in, jump up, and jump around. You can't just.
Okay, House of
Jump
Pain.
up to get down.
I would say personally that I'm on the fence too, but I would lean towards, I'm going to say no. I would not watch the second. If it's on or if something's happening, sure, whatever. But I'm not looking to watch the second episode. Sadly, this is all the time we have. I wish we had more time, and I feel like there's something else that we have to cover, and Mike's going to be very upset. He's going to be like, you didn't. Go ahead, Scott Baker. Oh, yes, I remember now.
I just say that just real quick, like when it started opening and the Star Wars theme came on.
I like that too.
It gives me the chills, and it makes me feel like a 12-year-old anytime I hear that music. Even to this day, the new Star Wars movies comes out, and I think they're kind of terrible. But I hear that opening theme and those trumpets, and I'm a 12-year-old kid, and I love it. And I don't think there's any other theme song of anything that's been made that quite does what the Star Wars theme does to me, like emotionally when I hear it.
I put that in my notes too. First thing I said was, ooh, the Star Wars. It grabbed me, and I liked it. It didn't have the crawl, which is good because we don't have time in a 20-minute show. But I noticed the same thing. And so what I'm trying to say is that this podcast was funnier and better and smarter than the droids.
Definitely.
It's a pretty low bar, but congratulations to us.
Scott, now we all go around. No, we all go around and we say it.
How awesome we are? Right. Yeah, we are totally awesome.
This podcast was surprisingly deep on the metaphysics of clones and their personality differences.
Vera?
This podcast was deeply moving, and now I want to go to the gym and work out and be like Yoda.
Fantastic. I love the way I strong-armed you guys and forced you to say it. You're like, okay, you guys, it looked like a hostage video. This podcast was, I swear, I don't know. Anyway, that's all the time we have. By the way, this is the 20th anniversary of Fallingtower. What? Yeah, it really is. 20th anniversary, and we're celebrating it with this podcast where we watch the first, so you don't have to. If you want us to watch a podcast, no, not a podcast. If you want us to watch a series, first episode, just put WTF in that series in the comments below, and maybe we'll do it. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you next time.